Today, we are going to talk about writing summaries. So, you may have been asked to write a summary in multiple pieces of writing at this point in your career as a writer or in your student life as a writer. But a summary is just a simplified version of something, okay? You may have heard before that a summary does not actually have any analysis with it. And I would say that that's actually not necessarily true. A summary can have analysis, and almost all summaries by good writers do incorporate some amount of analysis. So when you're writing a summary, I kind of like to think of an analogy with it. So we use the analogy of creating flower gardens for a paragraph. So let's use the analogy of someone making jam for a summary. When someone makes jam, they take a bunch of fruit, put it in a pot with sugar and maybe some gelatin. They cook it over a low heat. And then as the heat heats up the fruit, the liquid from the fruit is going to evaporate. And all of that liquid is the unnecessary component inside of the fruit in order to create jam. So when you're writing a summary, I want you to think about it in that mindset, in the sense that you have this larger thing, these kind of like multiple ingredients that you might be putting together to talk about a larger thing, whatever that is. But in order to summarize it properly, you're going to have to let the unnecessary stuff sort of evaporate from the summary that you're writing. Let's look at a few mentor texts to see how this is done when summarizing an event. So whenever you're summarizing events in your writing, you'll notice that summaries seem to typically follow a pattern of sorts. So we'll look at two patterns that you can use to summarize an event today. The first is observation, explanation, and analysis. Let's look at the mentor text from Alex Abad Santos, who is writing about the Don't Worry, Darling drama for Vox. There was also a moment in which Styles allegedly spit on Pine during the seating for the premiere. In the clip, Styles, arriving at his seat, seems to spit into Pine's lap. At the same moment, Pine appears to react by stopping his applause and flashes a look many read as something between annoyance and bemusement. Having zoomed in on the photos and slow motion scrubbed back and forth on the videos that exist of Styles sitting down next to Pine, I am exhausted at looking at Styles' lip quiver, but did not see any spittle flying in any one direction. There is also a theory that Pine was merely realizing his sunglasses were on his lap at the same time that Styles approached him. Pine's rep has flatly denied that there was spitting, calling it a result of an odd online illusion. So here we notice a few things. The author has taken the first sentence and dedicated it to an observation of the event. This is critical because really, without introducing the reader to the event with this observation, they're going to feel a little bit lost. So the observation really tips the reader off to what you are going to be talking about in your summary. The observation is followed here with a more detailed explanation. So the author says, in this clip, Styles arriving at his seat seems to spit into Pine's lap. At the same moment, Pine appears to react by stopping his applause, etc. So this explanation is just a little bit more detailed. It builds on that initial observation. Then here we see that there begins some analysis. So starting with having zoomed in on the photos and slow motion scrubbed back and forth on the videos that exist, Styles sitting next to Pine. I am exhausted at looking at Styles' lip quiver, but did not see any spittle flying in any one direction. So from there, you can see that they are noting their personal analysis of what happened. Then this is coupled with exterior analysis from other people who have actually studied the event to see what happened. So we have this pattern of observation, explanation, and then analysis. And what this does is it provides your reader with a really concise and tight but detailed enough explanation of the event so that they can understand what happened and be able to start make some inferences for themselves. So the next pattern that we're going to look at for summarizing an event is pretty common, especially in social studies writing, but you could definitely use it in any ELA classroom or even when summarizing something for science. And this is the observation and the cause effect sandwich. So let's look at how Mary Did Crescio does this for her entry on the Richmond Bread Riot for Encyclopedia Virginia. The Richmond Bread Riot, which took place in the Confederate capital of Richmond on April 2nd, 1863, was the largest and most destructive in a series of civil disturbances throughout the South during the third spring of the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. By 1863, the Confederate economy was showing signs of serious strain. Congress's passage of an Impressment Act, as well as a tax law deemed confiscatory, led to hoarding and speculation, and spiraling inflation took its toll, especially on people living in the Confederacy's urban areas. When a group of hungry Richmond women took their complaints to Virginia Governor John L. Letcher, he refused to see them. Their anger turned into a street march and attacks on commercial establishments. Only when troops were deployed and authorities threatened to fire on the mob did the rioters disperse. More than 60 men and women were arrested and tried while the city stepped up its efforts to relieve the suffering of the poor and hungry. So the first thing that I notice here is that we have the initial observation in one quick sentence right at the top again. Again, the initial observation is so important to introduce your reader to the event that you are summarizing. This is followed by a list of causes of the event. So they mention the strain on the Confederate economy. They mention the general starvation that was happening in these urban areas, and the fact that the hungry Richmond women took their complaints to the governor and he refused to see them. This is followed immediately by a very quick explanation of the event, and finally concluded with the effects of the event. So in the end, it says more than 60 men and women were arrested and tried while the city stepped up its efforts to relieve the suffering of the poor and the hungry. So why I say that this is a cause effect sandwich is that we have the causes listed at the top here. In the middle, you have sort of like the meat of what you're trying to summarize. So it says here, their anger turned into a street march and attacks on commercial establishments. Only when the troops were deployed and authorities threatened to fire on the mob did the rioters disperse. It may seem to you, just in reading that summary, that that's pretty brief for talking about the event itself and what actually happened. And the reason why that is because most of the time when you are using the observation, cause, and effect sandwich, what's going to happen is that you are going to spend more time in other parts of your writing actually explicating what happened in the event itself. And so you don't need to spend a ton of time on that here. But this is also really helpful whenever you need to do a bit of analysis to tell your reader why something happened, what happened, and then how it affected the people involved or the community or place that it happened in. So where in your writing do you have an event that you need to summarize that you could use the observation, explanation, and analysis pattern? Or maybe you have an event that you need to explain in a little bit more of an analytical way, explaining both why something happened and what the results were. Maybe there you could use the observation, cause, and effect sandwich. Thanks so much for watching. As always, please like and subscribe to help others find our video, and we will see you next time on Mini Moves for Writers.